representing the Minister for Employment. Will the Minister outline to the House the Government's commitment to ensure that employer and employee organisations always act in the best interest of their members? What policies are being implemented by this government to ensure the future prosperity of all Australians by promoting jobs and growth in our economy? And is the Minister aware of any alternative approaches?
The Minister for Industry, Innovation and Science.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the member for Robertson for her question. She, like members of this side of the House, knows that Australia's economy needs reform of the building and construction industry. It needs economic stability and safety in the road transport industry, and it needs to support honest union leaders. The opposition is undermining all three, Mr Speaker. The Leader of the Opposition abolished the Australian Building and Construction Commission when he was in government as a minister. The Leader of the Opposition presided over the RSRT's introduction and the sordid deal with the TWU for $220,000 of taxpayers' money for a so-called education campaign, which 3 years later is yet to be launched, Mr Speaker. And of course the opposition does not support the Registered Organisations Commission, which would support honest trade union leaders and make sure that dishonest trade union leaders were rooted out of the system. Mr Speaker, only a Turnbull government will establish the Australian Building and Construction Commission. Only a Turnbull government will pass the Registered Organisations Commission into law, and only a Turnbull government will support owner, driver, truck operators in Australia, 35,000 individuals whose livelihoods rely on being able to get on with their job free from the interference from the RSRT, Mr Speaker. The last time we had the Australian Building and Construction Commission, productivity in the building and construction industry rose by 9%. Consumers are better off to the tune of $7.5 billion a year, and industrial disputation fell in the building and construction industry. By contrast, last December, since the abolition of the ABCC in the quarter of last December, the industrial disputes in building and construction represented 2/3 of all days lost in our economy. 2/3 of all days lost in our economy in the December quarter were in building and construction industry. There is a lawlessness at large in the building and construction industry, and the reason why it's so rubbish, they say, rubbish. Who was the brave soul that said rubbish? Yes, the Hayden Royal Commission made it all up, I assume. There are 108 CFMEU officials in front of the courts right now, Mr Speaker. Right now, 108. And this brave soul says Dyson Hayden made it all up in the Royal Commission, Mr Speaker. What a disgraceful interjection. The truth is, if we bring the Australian Building and Construction Commission back, we will improve productivity in the building and construction industry. We will have less industrial disputation. We will have safer work sites where workers are looked after and small businesses are not bullied by standover merchants in the CFMEU. The Leader of the Opposition must break his umbilical-like cord attachment to the CFMEU.